Hey St. Catharines, Mayor Mat Siscoe here. Welcome to the first episode of talkSTC. talkSTC is an opportunity for me to talk to the folks in our community who are making change, who are making a big difference, who are doing the things that we are adding to our community to create a better experience for everybody who lives in St. Catharines and Niagara. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to the guests that I'm going to be interviewing over the course of the next 4 years, the conversations that I'm going to be able to have, and the information that I'm going to be able to bring to you and everybody around you. Anybody who cares to hear what's going on in St. Catharines will always have an outlet here at talkSTC. With that in mind, if you ever have any suggestions, ideas, I am always welcome and looking forward to hearing from you. Let me know who you think should be interviewed on our show, what events, what things going on in the community need to be talked about more in depth. With that said, my very first guest on talkSTC is Colleen Smith, the CEO of the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. Colleen, welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mayor Siscoe, and congratulations on your new job.
I sincerely appreciate it. It's been interesting, and you and I have a little bit in common in that we both have not been in our roles. You've been in yours longer than I have, but still. Now let's go over your bio. This is an impressive one. You are a Canadian arts leader, a former musician, and I would wager probably a current musician as well.
Continue on.
And an educator. Organizational leadership responsibilities of national and international teams. You were at Theatre Calgary. You were the inaugural International Taffel Music Baroque Summer Institute. You were project director of Phase 1 of the Massey Hall Capital Project. You were the co-lead on the Arts, Culture, and Digital Transformation Summit at the Banff Centre for Arts and Creativity. And as of May 2020, you were also the CEO of the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So when I read through the bio, I was impressed. I have to ask a question.
Okay.
What is Taffel Music Baroque Summer Institute?
Okay. Well, let's start with what is Taffel Music. So Taffel Music is a musical ensemble, and they specialize in music of the Baroque period.
Okay.
Right. So Baroque is before the classical era, and they play their music on Baroque instruments, meaning instruments from that era as well. They're based out of Toronto, and they are a world-renowned orchestra. So the Summer Institute was in the early days that group of musicians teaching other emerging musicians how to play in that style. And so playing on original instruments, very expensive antique instruments, and learning how they could have succession planning within their orchestra by teaching other musicians how to play.
So out of curiosity, how big of an orchestra?
That is considered a chamber orchestra. So unlike the Niagara Symphony Orchestra or Toronto Symphony Orchestra, which can be quite large, I believe Taffel Music is somewhere around 24-ish members. So it's considered to be a chamber size as opposed to a full orchestral size.
Okay. All right, see, we learn something new every day. As a teacher, this is always one of the things I like to do is to educate not just other people, but myself. I love to hear about this, and now I have a little bit more information. I'll admit, when I was reading through it, that one caught my eye. So, now you've had a number of past roles there. Mm-hmm. How did they prepare you to take on the role that you have now as the CEO at the FOPAC?
That's a great question. I feel like our careers should be guided by what we're passionate about, and we collect experiences as we go along. And so I started off, I was a high school teacher, right? I taught high school choral music and high school drama. And then I sort of got my way into working in the arts and then working with young people. So I sort of flipped it around a little bit. And then once I left the East Coast and I arrived in Toronto, I just kept being given these opportunities to move to really interesting organizations. So I've been collecting experiences in music, collecting experiences in theater, performing arts centers. I've been central, I've been to the West Coast, I've been back to the East Coast. So I feel like at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre, we do a little bit of everything and film. And that's the new, so you talk about learning, right? That's the new part for me, as I've never had responsibility for an entity that has programmed film before. So all of these great experiences across the country and things I've seen in different places and countries, it just makes me appreciate more what it is we do at the PAC. And I was just so drawn to the quality of the work that it was really, for me, it was a match made in heaven.
That's awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to back up a little bit. East Coast, where are you from originally?
I am from Kinkora, PEI.
Kinkora PEI. Okay.
So if you played Pin the Tail on the island, it would be smack dab in the middle. It's a tiny little farming village, actually Irish Catholic farming village of around 400 people.
Okay.
And that's where I'm from. And then I went to university at Mount Allison in Sackville, New Brunswick. And then I taught high school in Halifax, Nova Scotia. And then I've moved around.
Awesome. Well, as one Maritimer to another, because I was born at the Grace Hospital in Halifax.
Yes.
I'm glad to have you in Central Canada with us.
I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so you came in during COVID.
Yes.
And I remember you're coming on board. There was a lot of excitement. Give me an idea. I mean, the arts and entertainment industry was probably the hardest hit of anybody during the COVID pandemic in terms of industry-wide shutdowns. Things looked very different for the first, I'm going to say, 2 years of time that you were the CEO. How were they different, and what lessons were you able to pull out of that time that are going to inform the programming through the PAC going forward?
Yeah. So when I arrived, I'm going to tell a little bit of story of, I was living in Western Newfoundland, and it was COVID. I didn't know where I was going to live. I had actually, Debbie Slade helped to hook me up with a place that I could stay for free for a month. They were very generous. So I packed up my Mini Cooper with my 2 dogs and a couple of suitcases, and I drove all the way up. I took the ferry, drove all the way up, and I landed here. My first day actually in the office, I was greeted by Sarah and Kathleen and Carlos at a distance of about 20 feet wearing masks. And that was my entry point into this beautiful performing arts center. And so the first while was really this tiny little team that we had getting to know people. And for me, it doesn't matter if it's an arts organization or a city or any other kind of entity. I think what the pandemic has taught us is that you have to consider people, and you have to put time into people because they are everything for what you do. So I started focusing on my team, we started focusing on planning, and then eventually we were able to open our doors and welcome people back again. And it's been hard, but it's been a really slow process of integrating myself into the community and really seeing how the PAC is lighting up now that we are free from restrictions and cancellations and all of that. So it's like, we all will never live through, God, I hope, like anything ever like this again. But it's been worth it, I have to say.
So I love the optimism. I want to be that optimistic that we will never have to go through it again. As audiences have started to return, what's the sense? Are audiences excited to be back? Is there still caution amongst people? I know when I've been out and about, you still see folks in masks, which makes sense for a lot of people, but what's the sense at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre?
You are seeing masks from time to time, and I think we're now just used to that, and that's totally fine. Everyone is coming at their level of comfort. So I feel like we are past the point of people being nervous from a virus spread and a health perspective. But what I'm seeing though is people are, even those of us who are extroverts, we're out and we're around and we're doing the things, but then we get tired. And then you get home after work and it's kind of hard to get out again sometimes. And so that's what we're kind of seeing is just remembering what it's like to be there and getting past that barrier to say, no, I am going to go out. I'm going to have this event and I'm going to go out for a bite to eat, go to the show, maybe go for a drink after. But I have to tell you about this experience I had last weekend. We had a company coming in and renting the PAC, and they were doing a show called ABBA Mania. And I was down the street at Bulette for dinner with a friend of mine, and I got a text saying, Colleen, you have to see this. This is a fantastic show. The audiences are loving it. So I walked down, and the place was full. And I was sitting in row W, which is really up against the wall at the back. There's barely a seat left. And the entire theater of Partridge Hall was on their feet, dancing and singing. And there was a woman across the aisle from me. I swear, she was in her mid-80s. She had a cane and she was standing up and she was dancing and singing to ABBA. And so it just filled my heart. And I was so glad that I stopped in because it reassured me that we will be okay and that people love this. And we're in the business of bringing joy to people. And that's what was happening that night.
Okay, so that's a phenomenal story, and I love that, and I love that you brought that. So then, Has there been anything that surprised you? Like, have there been any shows where you expected a good response and your mind was blown? And I mean, I'm not going to lie, people standing up and singing along to an ABBA tribute in Partridge Hall, that would have shocked me. I'm not a huge ABBA fan, so maybe that would have been the reason why. But has there been anything that just mind blown kind of moment, a show?
Like every show has been so powerful, connected to the East Coast. We had Natalie McMaster and Danelle Leahy and their flock of children in for Christmas, for the holiday season, and again, it was just that spirit of joy that was really, it was a very special moment. I could feel it in the house. And Natalie is a force, a total force, and just being there in her presence was really amazing. On the flip side of things, we love our film house, and we are seeing people coming back more and more. And it's Oscar season, and we screen really beautiful independent films. And so what I want to see is even more people coming back to that. It's happening. It's a little bit slower than what we are hoping for, but I feel like it's starting to come back again too. So I'm hoping for that.
Well, I will say you've picked out my favorite part of FOPAC, which is the film house. I love checking out, what foreign films are coming. A couple years ago, Parasite won the Oscar.
One of my favorites.
And it was phenomenal. Having lived in South Korea for a couple of years, it was a phenomenal film. But to see it in that venue was great. So I appreciated that.
Do you know, last weekend we had a film called The Guy from Niagara.
Okay.
Which is John T-Bone Little, Big John T-Bone Little, who lives in Niagara Falls, and Io is on one of our cultural committees. He was the director and the creator of the film, the documentary, and so the great thing about the Film House is that we feature local and regional as well as some of these brilliant, like Parasite, these brilliant independent films.
Yeah, really, truly. Now, it's Black History Month.
Yep.
The second half of February, what sort of things do you have going on to celebrate Black History at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre?
Well, we have a lot programmed this month and sort of other kinds of activities that spill into the following months. The beautiful show we have coming up is the Harriet Tubman. It's a 2-act opera, Crossing the Line into Freedom. And that opera is created by a group out of Toronto called the Nathaniel Dett Chorale. And even when I was a teacher in Halifax, I was in awe of Nathaniel Dett Chorale. So they're coming to the PAC, and they have this opera that they're presenting on the 23rd of March. We also have the Mardi Gras Mambo with the Dirty Dozen Brass Band that's coming up after that. We have Cirque Calabante, which is a part of Family Day activities, and they're a group that it's a circus, a contemporary circus group that have flavors of their home country, which is also North Africa. And we have Film St. Omer is playing in the Film House. So there's a lot that's happening. And we've just finished as well this beautiful show, which is called The Spirit of Mali. Yeah. And that's a result of partnerships that we've had with Sophie Fran and with Brock. But here's the interesting thing about that. We had planned that for a year ago, January, and it was canceled because of the pandemic. And so our programming, sure, we've got feature, performances and presentations for Black History Month, but this is the kind of work we do all year long. And it just so happened that The Spirit of Mali and the original Whalers, which was also a rebooking, happened in the month of February.
That's awesome. Okay, so this one's a quick one, and I think this was an easy one. I think you have a good sense of who I am and what I enjoy. If there's one event in the next 6 months at the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre that I should go to see, which one is it?
Okay, so you're a dad.
Yep.
And I think that you and the fam should come out to Cirque Calabante as part of Family Day. I really, really do. And then if I can add another one.
Sure.
Daka Braka, which is this amazing performing group out of the Ukraine. They're playing on March 1st. They've been to the PAC before. And it's just this beautiful demonstration of music and dance and culture from the Ukraine. And I think everyone should get out and support this group. If there's any Ukrainian artists playing anywhere, I think it is our responsibility and obligation to go out and support them, not just because they're from the Ukraine, because they are fantastic.
You've got full agreement from me on that. Colleen, thank you so much for coming in. You were the inaugural guest on the inaugural episode.
It's over already?
It's over already, I know.
Oh, wow.
It happens quick. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Anytime.
Awesome. Coming up in just on the other side of the break, we're going to be talking to Rachel Brathwaite from the St. Catharines Downtown Association. Thank you, St. Catharines. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back, St. Catharines. We are here now with our second guest of our first episode, and I am very excited to chat with my friend, Rachel Brathwaite, the Executive Director of the Downtown Association. Rachel, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I always like to describe you as the person that I helped steal away from Hamilton. We'll go over your bio a little bit. You've been with the Downtown Association now for 2 years, but before that, you came from the Barton Street BIA in Hamilton. I know you are an honorary member of the Barton Street Battalion, so another Forge FC fan. That's wonderful to see. The St. Catharines Downtown Association represents 700 businesses, commercial property owners. It's one of the oldest BIAs in the country. And you were recently appointed to the executive of the Ontario Business Improvement Association, where you're co-chairing the advocacy committee and you chair the awards committee. Mm-hmm. So tell me a little bit about your involvement with OBIA, the Ontario Business Improvement Association.
Absolutely. So I've been a member with OBIA as a BIA for a long time with my previous role in Barton Street, and I get a lot of value out of it because they're really a group where BIAs can come together and learn best practices. They can R&D, rip off and duplicate, and really not learn the hard way basically on what works well and what doesn't. And it's a really good, solid group that advocates too for our small businesses and our main streets, where there's not really any other group or organization that looks out specifically for our small businesses. You've got the Chamber and you've got, CFIB and other different groups like that look out for a more variety of businesses, but OBIA is very strictly for main streets, right? And they're very strong in their advocacy role. That's how we got the Digital Main Street grants that have been very successful in supporting our businesses through a $2,500 grant for them to become digital through COVID. And that was one of the easiest grants we heard businesses could apply for through COVID. So it was a really good lifeline that was offered. So I'm very proud of the work they've done, and I'm very proud to be a member with them.
Well, I can say as someone who has been on the Downtown Association, I was on there for a number of years when I was a city councillor, you brought a very different viewpoint and outlook, and I think it's been very welcome. You started at the Barton Street BIA, and a little tongue-in-cheek with the Barton Street Battalion, but I will say Barton Street, a very successful BIA in Hamilton. A lot of people have noted, the improvements that have gone on in a couple of the BIAs in Hamilton. How did that prepare you for the St. Catharines Downtown Association?
Great question, and you're completely right. Barton Street, when I first started, had this very pessimistic look. People were like, "Oh, it's Barton Street." People would drive their kids down the street and say, "If you don't smarten up, you're going to end up here," kind of attitude. I could tell you some horror stories. So Barton Street is somewhat similar to St. Catharines in that it's a bit of a hidden gem. So, and the strength that Barton Street had, one of its biggest strengths was its people. And I would say it's the same for St. Catharines. We have some fantastic business owners in downtown St. Catharines who are very passionate about their city. They're very engaged with the community. I mean, the amount of stories I hear of businesses that are continually giving back to the community is amazing. And I think that's very similar to Barton Street. And I think St. Catharines too is a bit of a hidden gem. We tend to get overlooked by this waterfall that we've got as our neighbor. And I feel that St. Catharines doesn't get its fair share of limelight that it deserves, right? It's a beautiful downtown with, award-winning restaurants, diverse retail stores, and if you haven't been there, you need to be there because it's beautiful.
I have the exact same conversation with a lot of folks. Having been the downtown councillor, it was always fun to sort of describe what sort of businesses exist and what sort of treats there are that you can discover. You just got to take a bit of a walk. COVID happened. Obviously, everything shut down. Things start to bounce back. What are the steps that the Downtown Association, in conjunction with the city, took that you think helped accelerate that bounce back?
Great question. I would say the events. I think, when COVID, we started to see that light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak, and people were just like, get me out of my house kind of attitude a little bit. Not everybody, some were still very fearful, to be honest, but for the most part, people were very much, let me go and engage again. Let me get connected with my community. in a safe manner. And so I really think that the closures that we did of the streets and pedestrianizing them really helped give people that safe space to come and congregate, to enjoy meals outside when they couldn't go inside the restaurants, and to just celebrate the downtown and themselves and each other.
So things are going to look a little bit different this summer. Can you give me an idea of how the programming is going to change? What sort of ideas are coming? If there's anything different from what we've been seeing in previous years, give me a sense of what's my downtown going to look like this upcoming June, July, August?
Great question. So unfortunately, we won't have as many pedestrianized streets every weekend, but we do have really wide sidewalks on many of our streets. So still lots of space. We are doing a number of different events. On April 22nd for Earth Day, we're planning a sustainability-focused event in partnership with Marilyn Iwalka School of Fine and Performing Arts. So we're going to encourage, cyclists to come down and engage with a whole bunch of different sustainability-focused initiatives. And then July 15th, our famous block party will be coming back, but we'll be adding lots of fun elements from other events we did this summer. So for example, we'll have the Holly Festival of Color to kick it off. So that will be a fantastic splash of color again to our downtown and celebration. And then we'll also be having lots of family themed initiatives that day too. So it'll be a very full day for July 15th. So definitely mark that in your calendars. And yeah, we've got more coming as well throughout the year. So it's very exciting times.
That's fantastic. And you mentioned the wider sidewalks, and I try to always share the credit around, but I will just take a little bit. Myself and my council colleague at the time, Mark Elliott, pushed hard for those big wide sidewalks because we had seen the benefits in other communities. And I know that the businesses as well as residents talk a lot about the fact that can be the most activated portion. And in a perfect world, in a world of unlimited finances, I would love to be able to extend those wider sidewalks all the way down the street because we've seen the benefits that come from it. Now, at the beginning of the episode, I had Colleen Smith on from the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre. I know that you and her have worked well together, that the Downtown Association and the PAC have done a lot of partnerships. Can you give me sort of a sense on, what direction that's going to be taking going forward?
Yeah, so it's a fantastic partnership. We are so lucky to have the Performing Arts Centre in our space. Sidetrack slightly, but I did an OBIA tour once with other EDs from across Ontario that run BIAs, and we toured the Performing Arts Centre, and their mouths literally dropped open. They were so jealous that we had this fantastic facility in the heart of our downtown. So we truly are very, very lucky, and the amount of programming that they do is beyond belief. Family Day alone, they have a full day of free activities. So, really great partner for the community. In February alone, we also have over 100 events throughout the community, from Future Black Female, which is one of our members, that are doing conferences, events, talks, you name it. The Niagara Artist Centre are hosting a variety of things too. Same with Mate, they're doing jazz nights. The Meridian Centre's got a bunch of stuff going on too. So there's always something happening downtown. There's never not something happening. It's always a buzz, which is lovely.
So I know you've got a full range of programming for Black History Month. What's the website? If people want to go on and figure out what events are coming, not just in February, but throughout the year, where do they head?
mydowntown.ca.
mydowntown.ca. Excellent. So a couple of maybe weirder questions. This one I thought, because I know in my quest to see what's working in other places, a lot of times you wind up looking at case studies in the US, in Europe. When you look around, what communities, what countries provide some inspiration for where the St. Catharines Downtown could head?
Good question. I think Netherlands is definitely a real big one. I would love to see us have more supports for the cycling community. I do feel that we're making small steps, which is great, but if you look at the intensification coming to our downtown, the majority of people that will be living in these high-rise developments that are coming will not have cars. So we need to make sure that our downtown supports them so they can still get around to other areas of the city, even though I want to keep them in the downtown, and you can totally live your life in the downtown, but I know there's a beach, maybe a waterfall that they might want to see. So I get it if they want to, cycle other places. So I feel the Netherlands is definitely a leader with regards to cycling, and I'd love to see, I know we're not going to be there tomorrow, but I would love to see us kind of take up some of their initiatives that they have done to help us kind of get to a more future thinking downtown and city.
Awesome. So I said at the beginning, I felt like I had an opportunity to poach you from Barton Street. Let's assume that I can keep you here for 10 more years. What's the 10-year vision? You get 10 years out, where do you see the downtown of St. Catharines?
Great question. So definitely higher intensity. So we're going to see a lot more high rises in our downtown. I mean, the amount that are already planned from Carlisle Suites that's currently underway, 88 James, you know, the what people call the rock pile, but right at the corner of St. Paul in Ontario, they're already underway. The plans are in, you know, ground is broken on most of them. So we're going to see a lot more residential in our downtown, which will be tremendous because that provides extra support for our businesses. It's a little bit more sustainable than office. So I think as a result of that, people will be wanting to work where they live. So our office towers that have some vacancy right now will be filled. I think in turn, we're going to see a few more people that come downtown that are a little bit more engaged and want to make the downtown their back garden, which is what it will be. So I'm hoping to see a few more kind of beautification initiatives through trees and greening, maybe some green walls, and maybe some better bike routes to connect throughout the city as well would be.
I love it. You've got a roadmap. I'm looking forward to helping you implement it. Rachel, thank you so much for the chance today.
Thank you.
Sincerely appreciated. A reminder to folks, mydowntown.ca. Check out all the great events that are happening in the St. Catharines downtown. We will be back with you just on the other side of the break. Welcome back, St. Catharines. I want to say thank you again to Colleen Smith from the First Ontario Performing Arts Centre and also Rachel Brathwaite from the St. Catharines Downtown Association. A great episode talking about lots of things going on in the downtown of St. Catharines. Black History Month is going on right now. Make sure you check out mydowntown.ca for all the information about events upcoming throughout the month of February, as well as further into the year. Want to let everybody know, if you're interested in being a part or you have an idea for something that could be featured on talkSTC, please reach out. mayor@stcatharines.ca is our email address. All those ideas get put into the box and we take a look and try and figure out what should best be featured on our show on a week-to-week basis. Again, thank you for taking the time to tune in. It is sincerely appreciated and I look forward to continuing the conversation on talkSTC. Take care.